What's up, guys? Welcome back to Fab A to Z, and today we have a bonus episode for episode number 5. With me is Damien Riggins, our Riptide expert, and well, Damien, we have Pablo Pintor's PT5 list here, and well, if you want to learn how to play aggro Riptide, if you want to hear Damien talk about all the different cards and how to, play against different decks, you can go watch episode 5. This bonus episode is going to be about this deck list here, and as if you've watched episode 5, you will note that this deck list looks quite a bit different. Damien, tell me a little bit about the philosophy of this deck and what's going on here.
This is a deck that our team is labeled as bulltide.
Bulltide.
This is
Bullmander and Bulltide. Okay.
Yeah, it's a Riptide deck based around throwing huge numbers on like one card. This deck aims to fatigue your opponent.
Yeah. I could see there's a lot of 6 power things that were not in the other list. We got Battering Bolt. Headshot is effectively 6 damage.
You play Dreadbore in every matchup.
Yes. I so quickly talk about the equipment. It looks like so we don't have New Horizons, we have Balance of Justice. You talked about that a little bit in episode 5. Dreadbore we've already talked about. Long Draw Half Glove is just extra damage, and I guess Warmonger's protection. You don't need the aim counter.
You play Warmongers in your deck.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Long Drawn is for like if your opponent doesn't do a lot and you just have extra cards and you want to push a Battering Bolt for 10, Okay. This deck is every card that is an arrow comes in for +1 because of Dreadbore, to keep that in mind. For the most part, this deck is really just looking to block, get heavy value from your cards, and just like draw the game out very long.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about some of the card differences. So we have Battering Bolt. This one is just a giant ass arrow. Some against some heroes, especially those with lots of instants and
this is the
attack reactions.
Killer.
Yeah, this is the Mystic and Warrior Killer. Just a generally strong card. Command and Conquer gonna slow the game down quite a bit. Obviously, there's no real attack actions or attack reactions in this deck for this, but CNC still draws the game out quite a bit. We talked about Endless Arrow, E-Strike, Headshot. I guess so. Interesting thing. There's some blues here, and there's a substantial amount of blues. Is it mainly just to yeet weakest links and yeet?
Well, all your attacks cost like 2.
Yeah,
and you have to load them with your bow, so they cost 3. So they're like all 3 for 7s.
Okay.
So yeah, this is Pablo's fatigue deck looks. I kind of like this style of deck sometimes. This is the deck that you like if you want to have a really long grindy game with somebody. Murky Waters is great with an on hit to put back one of the traps you've already played. It doesn't normally have Dominate ever.
Yeah,
but it's a 3 for 7.
Yeah,
so it's a break point.
Would you say this deck list is easier or harder to pilot than the aggro deck list that we talked about in episode 5?
This deck is closer to Guardian.
Okay.
So because you're like blocking and sending 3 for 7 with on hit, or you're striking, or you're playing a weakest link.
So if you're like an aggro player, you probably should start with the other list. If you play more defensive decks, maybe start with this list if you want to play Riptide.
Yeah. This list is very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't personally like Intoxicating Shot, but it is a blue 3 block, which is neat.
That's actually funny. Is that you in the other list you didn't use Murky Water or Intoxicating Shot, even though those are specializations, and generally, if a hero has specializations, you run them. I guess. I guess it just makes more sense in this style of deck.
Okay, yeah, you can't pitch
let's
for
talk
Murky
about this
Water.
card. Let's talk about Intoxicating Shot a little bit here. So this is a very weird card because on hit they get a advantage. But obviously, Courage and Quicken tokens basically trigger every trap in the whole game, other than Spike Pit Trap. This is just a really weird card, but
every time I hit with this card, somebody CNCs me for 7 will go again. So I can't play this card.
Okay, so this is just a blue block 3 for you.
That's a blue block 3. It hit it.
Mm-hmm.
That card's gotten me killed, so I can't play it anymore.
Okay, Take Cover is another new card. I guess the reload's not relevant because you have your hero ability.
Yeah. Well, you say that. It's actually very interesting, this card. This card from Arsenal is like pretty good because if you draw a Crucible Trap without another trap in your hand, you could take cover from Arsenal and reload the Crucible Trap. So it does have utility. It isn't just a 0-4 block.
Okay. Sigil of Solace. Obviously, a lot of cards block for 3 in this game, but this has the added bonus of allowing you to activate your hero ability and get things into Arsenal if you need to.
Yep.
Weakest Link is just, one of the best disruptive elements in the game. Tripwire Trap, we talked a little bit about Tripwire Trap in the main episode, but sometimes this effect, they can't pay for it. And that costs them some damage or an on-hit or something. Also of note that this blocks for 4. The crew traps do block for 4, so that's a little bit different. Good old Codex. We have another crew trap, Pitfall Trap, so just a little bit more damage there. Got Hold the Line, obviously paired with Balance of Justice. Smooths out the spike turns, and 2 blue infecting shots. It's just there because it's good. Warmongers we talked about. And I guess here we go. 3 copies of Remembrance tells you everything you need to know about this deck.
Yeah, this deck is really hard fatigue.
So let me just ask, like, so let's say the most aggressive matchups in the game, like Boost, Dash, Zen, like, are you still like bringing in Remembrance against those decks?
Against decks that play 2 blocks and like burn through their deck, no, you're not playing Remembrance against them. There's no point. They're gonna kill their own deck. You might play 1 or 2 into Dash if you think they're like slab,
right?
Because that game will go long.
Okay,
but I wouldn't bring them into like super aggressive decks.
Okay,
they do not block.
Okay, in terms of traps, we got the same Frailty, Inertia, Boulder, and Tar Pit in the sideboard here. Stonewall Gauntlet, we briefly mentioned that this sometimes blocks for 3 or 4, which is, this deck wants to block. We got a Vambrace. There's no Murkmire Grapnels, there's no pumps in this deck, so it's going to be difficult to... I guess Enigma should be pretty difficult for this deck.
Oh, this I don't think this deck ever beats a good Enigma. But we do play Vambrace still, though, I guess.
So what is this deck trying to target?
This deck is good into Guardian.
Okay. Is it better into Zen than the other list?
Yes. It is.
Okay, what
because
makes it better?
You're just like fatiguing Zen. On their pop-off turn, you have balance. You have a bunch of 4 blocks. So the thing about Zen against Riptide is after their pop-off turn, they're not doing a lot because you want to block with cards. So if their turns slow down like aggressively after their pop-off turn, they might not ever be able to damage you again. Or if they do, it's like here and there. And you can eke out the game and they'll run out of cards. They'll run out of things to do. Like, eventually they're just going to have blues in their deck or chi, and they can't block your battering bolts, and they'll just discard all the cards.
And this is something we didn't really talk about, is that generally Riptide, like 80-90% of the time, is going to be aggro, maybe 10% mid-range, 10% control. Is that roughly what Riptide lists look like?
I would say people like mid-range a lot. The Barbed Castaway list has been picking up traction.
Okay.
So I would say like mid-range and aggro are up there. I think fatigue takes like a Guardian player to play.
Right.
Because this is a very Guardian inspired deck, right?
So my point from this is that generally Zen is going to assume that Riptide is aggressive and therefore is going to bring in the needles, and it actually makes it it's much easier to fatigue needles than Kakara.
I don't think they'll ever bring needles against you.
Really? Okay.
Even if you're aggro. Because like
the trap
if they
yeah, I guess they get too much value from traps.
If you give them a frailty, you can block with New Horizons to blow up their needle. Like
that's true. Yeah. Okay. I forgot about frailty trap messing with the attack value of the needle. Interesting. Okay. So they're gonna bring in Kakara, and have you played like this more defensive Riptide against the Kakara? Their late game should be like they can't generate 2 tigers generally, so it might be difficult for them to deal any damage unless it's super late game.
In the late game, you should overtake them. The part that you have to get through when playing this deck in the Zen is like when they decide to play Art of Wars and stuff.
And Balance of Justice, hold the line, and a couple 4 blocks here and there does help. And some of these traps on those particular turns, like theoretically, you could be blocking for like 20-22 value on those spike turns, somewhat regularly, right?
Something like that.
Okay.
It really depends on the hand. The only 2 block on the deck is Codex, right?
Yep.
So he doesn't play like a Wounded Bull. He plays like Battering Bolts and CNC. He plays mainly Disruption.
And it looks like the Codex, the only 0-cost target is the Endless Arrow. I guess technically Intoxicating Shot could be.
well, the main thing you do with Codex in this deck is you pitch a blue to the bow, and then you play Codex and grab back CNC or Battering Bolt. And you play that.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we said that the Zed matchup is a little bit better for this list. The Assassin matchup, would that be?
You would end up going to fatigue with them most of the time, and you have so many, like, you could just like not block a Bonds of Agony, and then your hand be 3 reactions. So you can adapt to almost every situation like an Assassin has just by not blocking, because there's so many like traps and defensive cards in the deck.
Okay. And we said that the trade-off is that you're going to be a little bit weaker against the Illusionists. So you get a little bit of a bump in your Zen matchup, a little bit of a little bit more struggle against the Illusionists. How about like decks like Victor? Would this would be? You talked about how this is substantially better against Guardian.
Yeah, this deck wins clashes.
Yeah, this deck.
Or ties.
Yeah, that does help a lot. And I guess against Kano, this would be roughly the same as the other deck.
This deck would just never beat Kano.
Yeah. How about the Brutes? So that's kind of a. So we have KO, Reinhardt, and Levia.
This kind of deck would probably do really well into Brutes.
Okay.
Because I think Riptide into KO is just favored for the Riptide for the most part.
Okay. And adding some cards like Command and Conquer and Weakest Link just helps round out that matchup, or is just like having the ability to run the Brute out of threats,
The Brute will eventually run out of good cards. So in an aggro matchup, the Brute will run out of armor and then have no blocks, and then they will eventually just like lose value because your on hits will take over the game. And this version of the deck, they will just run out of good cards, and then you'll just kill them. They can't like outpace the way you block.
This deck list also is like immune to Scowling Fleshbag because you don't go too wide.
That's not true. You have E-Strike. You're never saying go again. Bliss in the deck.
Yeah. Technically, they can intimidate the card you draw, I guess. Yeah.
Actually, Scowling is never useful against any version of Riptide because you'll just reload the cards you want to play after it.
Oh, there you go.
The scaling is so bad in the Riptide. I think I'd be more scared of a Levia that played Spoiled Skull into me. That would probably scare me more than a Scowling Fleshbag.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts on this deck? If not, we could make this bonus episode kind of short and sweet.
Not really. I really like this deck. This deck looks great.
This deck looks very interesting, and it looks like a completely different style. Riptide can be built in many different ways, which I think is one of the really interesting things about it, is that if you put the time into learning Riptide, you can start tuning your own decks. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Okay. Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this little bonus episode for Riptide, Lurker of the Deep. All right. Well, this has been Josh Lau with TheCardGuyz. With me is Damien Riggins. Thank you for watching. See you later.